That's Sophia.
Hi, how are you?
Ooh, control your dog, man.
Quiet.
You guys got big.
I was not focusing.
How's school?
I'm homeschooled. I've been homeschooled for like 8 years.
Seriously, you still don't go to school? Lockdown's over, you know.
I don't go to school.
You know, I have so much questions about homeschooling. I want to homeschool my little one. Can we go somewhere and I can ask you a couple of questions? I'm just kind of jogging, trying to get myself fit. You've got a park over there. Do you want to come? All right, let's go. This place is nice. You did well, man. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so how can I help? Come through. Do you want some water? First, so how can I help? What questions have you got about homeschooling? Okay, yeah. No, my dad built this classroom. We built it together, actually. It was like one of our projects that we did when the kids were little as homeschooling. We were teaching them about the foundation of the earth and the foundation in terms of what scripture says about building your foundation, making sure that your knowledge is rock solid, basically. And then we just kind of extended it as the years went on. So it's been a real blessing to have this space for the kids. But, you know. All right, so yeah, so what do you want to know? I just want to know, like, is it legal to homeschool your kids? Yeah, okay, so basically a lot of people have that same question. A lot of people have the question about whether or not it's legal to home educate your children. And the answer is yes, it is legal. Or like fined or something like that?
No, you won't get fined, you won't get arrested, or nothing will happen to you for home educating your children. It's like, you've got to think of it like this. It's like boarding school. You have boarding schools, you have community schools, you've got free schools, maintained schools, all the different schools around you. They're all options. And you've got to remember that home education is also an option. It's quite simple like that, really. Not many people know that.
I thought every kid had to go to school, and I thought maybe only rich people homeschool their kids.
And no, it's not just for the rich. Yes, the Queen would have been home educated. Many celebrities get home educated because they're on the road quite a bit. But it's not. It's a viable option, and it's not just about. It's just basically just a viable option. I mean, parents are the first educators of their children anyway. That's what I say, because parents have always been teaching their children from they were really little. Like you have, you've got your children, haven't you? Yeah, so you've been teaching them from they were really small. You've taught them how to walk. You've taught them how to like be disciplined in different ways, and you just kind of extend that.
Yeah, but I can't teach my kids like maths and all them subjects there, you know.
True, I mean there is argument about that, but then my argument to that would be, why was it that you would feel as that you've been through the education system yourself from the age of 4 years old until the age of 16. If you went to college, you would have gone to school until the age of 18 years old. So you've been educated within that system. So if you're feeling as though you're not capable of educating your children, why then would you want your children to go into a system where they're not going to be able to educate anybody else either? Because it's almost like you're saying to yourself that you're not educated enough yourself. But then you're arguing for the point that every child needs to go into that system where you don't feel like it's done enough for you to be able to have the skills to educate your own children. But yet a lot of people fight for their kids to go.
Offensive.
No, I'm not trying to cause offence. I'm not trying to cause offence with you. Who's going to check me, boo? Anyway, I'm not trying to cause offence. I'm just saying that basically I'm a teacher at the end of the day, so I work in schools and I believe in education anyway. But my point is, if you don't feel like you're equipped to teach your children when you've been at school from the age of 4 years old to the age of 18 years old, which is 14 years now, why would you then argue for that system and put your child into the same system where when they're the same age as we have been at 18 years old, they wouldn't be able to educate their children on things like maths and things like that?
Yeah, but they teach things differently. Like, they teach things very different from how I learn it at school.
Yeah, I hear you.
And how my parents learn it at school.
Yeah, I hear you. We do teach things. We may have taught things, been taught things different when we were younger, but it still shouldn't be that difficult if you've been through the system yourself. Anyway, we'll save that for another time. But the whole point is, it's legal, it's a viable option, we're protected by law, and nothing's going to happen to you if you home educate your children.
You know, I knew someone. I had a friend. There was a friend of mine who her son, I think he was getting bullied or something. He hated school. He was never going to school. She'll get him ready for school. He'll get dressed up like he's going to go to school, and then he'll just bonk off school. And they didn't know what to do with him. The teachers were saying like, they might suspend him. That the mum might have to homeschool him. Social services got involved in him. And, it was a disaster. And I think he left school with like no GCSEs or nothing because the mum didn't know what to do. Do you know what I mean? So then that's not good. That shows that homeschooling is not good.
No, I hear you. Those type of issues, they're very sensitive issues anyway, but they're not education issues, more like a flaw in the parenting, and it's like a parenting issue where people like social services and the local authorities need to step in for their children, because if their children are at risk of harm, then there's a duty of care for all of us to care for those children, but it's not an education issue. That's an issue that all parents have to understand, that they're there to protect their children, regardless of whether they don't send them to school or not, or don't send them to school.
But aren't the kids invisible?
No, home education children are not invisible.
Taking a register and things like that, then how do people know where the kids are? And like, who gets to see that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the problem that we've had to be faced with, because people talk as though we are invisible to society, but we are here, like everyone can see us. And the reason why within the homeschool environment many homeschool children have been referred to social services and things like that, that's because people have seen them. If they were invisible, then there wouldn't be as many referrals, but people have seen them and they wonder, how come they're not following the norms of society, how come they're not in a school, and then they may refer them simply for that one reason. But going back to the story that you just said about your friends, those children were actually in school. So that's a safeguarding issue for kids who were in school. They were already known to the school. Maybe the child that you spoke about, he was already being truanted from school. He was already not at school, already had an issue. So his parent tried to homeschool him, or if something else happened, the issues were already there, if that makes sense. So in the same way, some children who are home educated, they may still have issues as well as children who are in school, because we live in a broken society and these things do happen, but it's not unique to home educators. That's my point. And you've just given examples really where these issues are taking place in schools over and over and over again. I feel as though the schools have enough to deal with. So if there are parents out there that want to homeschool their children and give their child a good education from being at home, it's one less thing for them to worry about, not one more thing for them to worry about. You see? But they're, like I said, if there was an issue that came, the issue would be arisen, because it would already be known to social services. If it was a new issue, those children would be seen by doctors and health professionals, and neighbours would see them, and there's ways of them being seen. And if the parent was doing something really terrible, like we see in the movies, like really bad things have happened, that again is a parenting flaw, not a home education flaw.
Okay, but going back to my last question, how do you teach your child everything that there is to know about everything when you might not have even learned some of those subjects yourself? Like maths, for example, maybe you've got maths at a low grade, like got a grade C at GCSE. Like, how do you then teach your child everything that they need to know for them to be able to go and get a good education and go to college and go to uni and things like that?
People worry about, like I said before, people worry about how they can teach their children things. But one thing I say is that if you want to teach your child a subject area that he wasn't too gifted in, maybe do the subject yourself. So just say that you was trying to teach your child a GCSE.
True. Mm-hmm.
You would think maybe you will learn it alongside them. Maybe you can even take exams at the same time as your child. So when your child's doing their maths exams, you can do your math exam too. Obviously at a different exam centre. I would recommend going to a different exam centre, because a child might want to walk in without their mum present. But you can still learn alongside your child at the same rate as your child, and that's quite beneficial too. And I've heard of parents who do that. I think it's really admirable that they would do something like that.
Yeah, but how? I still don't get it. How do they get GCSEs? Because you can't do exams in your house. How would they get the GCSEs?
Yeah, so the way that they get their the way that they do their GCSEs, if they choose to do the GCSE option, the parents would pay for them to go to an exam centre. So like my son, the older one, I paid for him to do triple science. So I paid around £170 per subject for him to go. Yeah, it's quite expensive for him to go into school to take those exams. But then many parents, they spread it out a bit more. So if they find that their child is gifted in one area, say maths, that child could take that exam maybe in year 9, and then in year 10 they might take exams like history or citizenship or something else. Then towards the end, we normally recommend that children take English exams as later as possible, because English is a way of communicating, and the more you grow, the more you develop, the better your communication normally gets. So they might take the exam in like year 11 or something like that. So that's all you do. You just do the work at home yourself and then pay for your child to have the exam.
Okay,
So what about socialisation? Like really, like, you know, how do the kids socialise if they're not going to school?
Yeah, even with socialisation, I mean, like you saw my kids already. The older one, he went back into the system, went back into A-levels because he wants to do medicine. He's met friends there. He, you know, obviously at the beginning walking in, it was a bit tricky because he felt like some of the groups I had seen, a lot of what he had seen in the school was what he had seen in movies and things like that, which may sound a bit sad, but that's what he felt like. But they were really friendly to him. They, you know, the group of friends that he's with, now they're really friendly with him. We're still friends with them today. And he found friends through the system. Yeah, my other two kids still have friends. They find friends, like my son Tiago, you saw him as well. He was going off to see another friend that he's met like at basketball practice and different clubs that he attends and things like that. So it's a bit more like they have to seek out their friendships a bit more when they're home educated, and their friends may come from a wider age variety because they're not in school. Children are, you know, in friendship groups within the same year, but whereas in home education, they're friends with anyone else who's home educated basically. But they socialise. It's a different way of socialising. Like obviously the children at school will be socialising one way, the kids at home may be socialising another way, but it's still socialisation nonetheless. I hope that helped you.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Thank you for that actually. Like that actually really did help. Like you talk faster.
That helped.
But it did help. But like I feel like I understand it a bit more. You know, I would love to homeschool my kids, but I don't know if I can be with them all day, you know. But you know, thank you for having me around. It was nice talking to you. I was only joking before when I said about you getting checked. But yeah, thank you for having me around. I better go. I got my gear on, trying to lose some weight.
Right.
So I better go for my run.
No problem. I'll walk you out.
Cool.